Okay, awesome. Aloha, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amjad. I'm an extension agent, as Josh mentioned, Sustainable and Organic Agriculture Program, part of the extension team in CTAHR. I'm located on Oʻahu. The area that I serve is the windward side of Oʻahu. Um, and yeah, I'm happy to be with you all today to talk about crop diversity. Um, Crop diversity is one topic that's actually very important for Hawaii, and I'm gonna mention more stuff about it. And if you have any question, especially about crops and varieties of crops, um, reach out to your extension agent. We have lots of information that we can share with you. If we don't have the information immediately, we can help to look for information to give you the best ideas about kind of crops and varieties that you can grow in your area. And I'm gonna come also into some more details about the topic of selection and stuff. Um, this slide showing the team of the Sustainable and Organic Agriculture Program, and we are a statewide team. Um, we have great people doing work statewide from Kauai all the way to the Big Island, and we are distributed as part of CTAHR all over the state to help the farmers. So whichever island you are on, we are here to help in moving this agro production and the issue dealing with the issues related to agro production forward. Also, we are part of the sustainable and organic agriculture, as I just mentioned. We have also a website, and the cms.ctar.hawaii, I think, is going to be changing over time. But if you are interested in learning more about what we do or engaging in the newsletter, we call it Hanai, or the social media, in case if you are engaged in those, um, you can just go there and submit your email. You will be receiving about. We try to publish the newsletter about quarterly, uh, every 3 months, trying to publish them, and they usually have information for farmers, something short and sweet just for people to benefit from it very quickly. Also, it has a search engine where you can plug in any words, any keywords you would like. It will pop up some articles that's related to that topic that you are looking for. It's a free. We're not gonna give your email to anybody. We are a university. We don't work with any businesses. We help everybody. That's what we are. Social media is the same thing. It's just because the increase of the younger people and new people who are interested in social media in agriculture, we thought also to be out there. So we are showing the people what we are working on, and also some like workshops and field days and stuff like this. We also post them on our social media. So people who are interested in knowing more about our activities, they can have it on their phone, technically, the smartphones. When it comes to Hanai, as I mentioned earlier, it's part of the main link, the cms.citar.hawaii.edu, and SOAP program, where again, us extension agents, specialists, when we do some work, especially applied research, we try to get the information that's related to the farmers directly. Like I will give you some examples just below. Uh, for example, this article, it's about the sweet corn varieties that we were testing. And what we did is just showing the people what are those varieties, why we did the work, and the expected yield out of them. This way, people who are looking to test some sweet corn or looking for a sweet corn, at least they have an idea of, based on the study condition, those varieties and how they did. And this one goes for so many other crops. I give you another example, the banana tissue culture program that Josh and myself and Jensen and many, actually the entire system, because we do distribute statewide. We've been distributing the tissue culture banana plantlets, and those ones is like I cannot put them on one island and move them, just because although we can do it after an inspection, but it's also very costly. So instead, We take the tissue culture, the plantlets. We go to each island. We put them there, take care of them on each island, then we distribute them. That makes it much easier and easier to work with. And also, it's technically the engagement of all the entire extension team statewide in the distribution of those virus-free banana plantlets. This article, for example, it talks about taking care of those plantlets after transplanting them into the field. What do you want to focus on? Which is, for example, the banana bunch-top virus is a big issue in Hawaii. So giving some options for both organic and conventional farmers about the best materials that they can use to prevent the infection with bunch-top. Something like that. So in Hawaii, I believe everybody aware of the sugarcane and pineapple plantation. And it's a very old story where both the sugarcane and the pineapple were driving the economy in the state, especially in the 19th and the 20th century. Then suddenly one of the reasons, which is economy base, that the fuel cost to take technically the harvested sugarcane or the pineapple that they just open a can and send out of Hawaii became more costly. So business is just about profit, right? So what they decided, okay, bringing things from Hawaii is costly. Let's look into cheaper locations. And that's what led to the end of those two kind of eras. You still see some pineapple or sugarcane here and there, but the reality is those plantation era ended. Those era also, they are what made Hawaii Hawaii, which is that melting pot of people from all over the world. Yes, the immigration was specific, for example, from Japan, Korea, China, the Philippines. But then over time, also that immigration led to more and more people. That's why Hawaii is Hawaii. We have people from all over the world. We are very welcoming and open and all of that because of that early immigration that led to more and more, and that people living together in a uniform in a harmony and a beautiful uh, area, paradise on earth. So those two eras, although they are related to some issues, but also they are the ones that opened Hawaii to be what it is today. Um, After ending those two eras, um, the farming in Hawaii starts shifting into more diversified ag. And what is a crop diversity? Crop diversity is simply growing multiple crops from different species, families in an together or after each other or with what we call crop rotation. And the reason is there is many reasons for it, including it's vital for food security because when those sugarcane and pineapple plantation just ended technically and start collapsing, or God forbid, some disaster or disease or something that could lead to a big loss of one crop, the crop diversity help us to at least there is something else that we can rely on. So food security is very important when it comes to this crop diversity. They go hand by hand, especially, and also it helps with the ecosystem resilience and human nutrition. Ecosystem resilience is again because those multiple different crops, the way they are growing, the pests around them, fertilization, and so on and so forth, is always work together. A very good example is the rotation of legumes with grain crops, because legumes are known to fix the atmospheric nitrogen and they reduce the reliance on the need to fertilize. At the same time, the way their roots grow, and then you put after that, like for example, sweet corn. That's a very good rotation. Soybean and sweet corn can be multiple options we have in Hawaii. But those different types of also that's ecosystem resilience as well. Help it building soil health, building better, suppressing those pests and issues. Also, to prevent total agriculture collapse, as I mentioned, because of pests, climate change, disasters, and so on. So, crop diversity is very important. Improve soil and water health because of, again, the way they are growing and the root system The way the roots penetrate that soil allow for example, instead of compaction, they allow for the soil to become more fluffy and so on and so forth. The roots themselves from different crops, they help also in soil and water quality as well. Support diverse and nutrient rich diet. And again, it goes back to Hawaii, the big diversity in Hawaii. We need all those different crops, the crop diversity, because also we have different people and from all over the world, and their cuisine and the way they use different herbs and spices and crops and grains and legumes and so on and so forth. It varies, right? Uh, so very good example is the green onion. Thai, and they go more with the green, and then also there are some other cuisines they like the white portion of the onion itself, the stem and the bulb. So that's all because of that diversity in the people and their needs and their cuisines, and leading to that also the need for that crop diversity itself as well. Now, why crop diversity again is very important for Hawaii specifically? We import 85% of what we consume. And that's not like, yes, you hear it all the time, I'm sure, from everybody talking about agriculture in Hawaii. And it's a reality. In fact, so many people, they think even that 15%, it's not really 15% because it includes the coffee bean. Nobody eats coffee bean. We drink coffee, right? But that coffee bean, because it's harvested as a beans, it's considered part of the ag production. And also, with that 15% of what we consume, even if 15% of what we consume, great. That 15%, we have 0% of certain grains and legumes. We have crops that we produce completely nothing out of them. So the 85%, not all over the board. There are crops that we rely 100% on them, and there are crops we rely on them, for example, 14% or 40% or 50%, and that's the diversity in it. Because we grow crops, but also there are crops that we don't grow at all. Now, keep in mind, crop diversity is very important for Hawaii because also it can be very suitable. I'm not sure how many of you are aware. We have 11 soil type out of 13 soil series worldwide known. In the entire world, there's about 13 soil series. In Hawaii, we have 11 of them. And we have the leeward and the windward, our side of the wet side and the dry side and the in between. And that's all that crop diversity. Some crops that they prefer more wet condition. Some crops that prefer kind of in the middle. Some crops that prefer more on the dry side. And that's the rainfall, for example, temperature, winds, and then also topography, flat versus the hills or mountains, and so on and so forth. Climate change, right? Like I tell people, I give this stories maybe more often. I tell people when I came to Hawaii in 2004, after I finished my PhD, I start working on beans. And early years of me working on beans, I was never able to harvest beans fully dry. I had to put them in at least air dryer, not like heat, just air, to complete the drying so I can store them. In the last, I would say 6, 7, 8 years, no, the story is different. I've been able to harvest beans completely juggling inside. If you shake the pods, you hear the seeds inside how dry it is. And I have many examples, pictures showing completely dry pods from the field. So climate change is definitely having wider and wider areas in Hawaii that's actually facing less and less rainfall. Yes, that opened the opportunity for some crops, but then also at the same time, it's climate change. Also, we have, and I'm putting the picture there, which is the mountain on the Big Island with uh, cold, right? It gets cold enough for some crops that they require the chill requirements. We can grow them on the Big Island in Waimea. Olives, for example, is a very good example that crops that they need cold weather in winter in order to flower and fruit in spring and summer. And we have it on the Big Island only. The entire state, you may not be able to have it, only the Big Island, because that little bit portion in Waimea side where the upper mountain gets snow cool enough for those varieties to have the requirement of the chilling. So definitely it's part of it. Now, selecting varieties and crops for to grow. There is many points that you want to select, including, for example, the varieties itself. Especially in Hawaii, we have high pest pressure. So are those seeds or the varieties of these crops, they have some disease resistance and tolerance. One more thing, which is, for example, what are their suitability in the market? Especially if you are trying to, like, you want to produce enough to sell. Uh, is the market prefer those varieties? These questions are needed. Additionally, also there are crops, what we call them F1, first generation. In the first generation crops, which is technically right now all of the seed companies that they produce their own seeds to sell, they stay at what's called first generation, where you can come buy the seeds from them and you grow it, you will get what they are technically promising you. However, if you collect the seeds from them and try to grow them again, you're not going to get the same thing because it's only first generation and any seeds out of that one will split back again into the parents. So you want to know what's your purpose. Is your purpose to collect the seeds and regrow, or your purpose just that one harvest? Because based on that, if it is only to grow and keep going, F1, as long as it has good characteristic that you want, good for you. If you are trying to save seeds and continue after, F1 will not work for you. Heirloom. Heirloom is very good, usually uh, varieties. They are special. However, we need to know in the heirloom ones, what are the specific location for that heirloom. If the specific location for that heirloom is Hawaii, that's good. If it is somewhere outside Hawaii, no matter how good you see it, it may not do well in Hawaii. Because in heirloom, what's happening is that a farmer, for example, or bunch of farmers, they plant a crop and then they select the best performing plants out of the field for seed saving. And then they plant again those seeds that they collected. And then they select again and again and again. And then they end up with kind of very selected, good quality seeds for that specific location. Yes, they are doing beautifully in that location because they are well adapted within because of the selection. But if you take that same variety outside that location, most likely it will not perform the same because although yeah, it's doing well for that condition, anything else will shock it. So when you hear heirloom, for example, mainland heirloom, don't expect it to do well in Hawaii. It may, but also expect not because of that selection and adaptability to certain condition of growth. As a team, I mentioned many names in as part of the CTAHR team, extension team, and we are again all over the state. We focus on the canoe crops. Those are the you can call them actually. They are linked to Hawaii's history uh, and tradition, and also they are very important because these crops people grow up with them. So those crops we always focus on them. Like for example, we keep the collection of ulu. We keep the collection of taro. We try to keep the banana production, the local banana production up. Same thing with the papaya, for example, and many other crops. These crops, we try always to have them available. Like for example, the taro. I believe almost each station in the state, they have at least they keep up with the collection of the Hawaiian varieties of the taro because those ones are very important. And farmers always come to us saying we need some. So we try always to have them available as much as possible. So when we harvest, we can give hoolies to the community so we can keep those varieties going. Bananas again. When I joined the extension team in 2019, one of the points was the big decline of the banana production on the windward side. It was a major producer on Oahu, on the windward side of Oahu, was a major producer of banana. Bunchy top wiped out acres and acres of it. So we tried to focus on it because and especially focus on apple banana because that's Hawaii apple banana. We get a lot of Cavendish, Williams banana from the market, from Costco and Sam's and Safeway and so on and so forth, which is good. We need it because there is a demand. But apple banana is a Hawaii signature. So we try to re-establish that by helping the farmers to have more back. It goes on with all the other canoe crops as well. Additionally, for example, mamaki, the native plants, the medicinal considered in Hawaii, try to help the farmers to expand the production locally by looking at varieties, how they perform, and also looking into ways to keep this precious. For example, in the picture on the left side in the presentation, what we did, we tried to grow it in areas. The native habitat for mamaki is an understory in a forest crop. But if you try to take it outside, especially in direct sun, it will suffer. So what we did, we used the sorghum or sudex, which is a cover crop, to give it that shade, and then use that same crop to suppress weeds in between when there is cool weather. I would chop that sorghum and sudex, leave it as a mulch to suppress weeds, and then let it grow back again to give the plant. It goes up and higher to give the mamaki plant healthy environment for it to stay healthy and grow well. They were really beautifully growing. Yeah, they were beautifully growing, and that's this picture actually in Pearl City at the Urban Garden Center. We tested them there. On the right side, that's collection of different varieties in Volcano area on the Big Island. Different varieties of mamaki. We tried to get the seeds, the fruits technically, which it has the seeds, and gave to people so they can grow those mamaki and expand as well. Additionally, we as a team work on evaluating varieties, and we do that all the time for one major purpose. We try to help the farmers to reduce what's called trial and error. Trial and error because the farmers are working hard. We don't want them to try something that may not work and then they will kind of be discouraged or lose money. We write grants, we bring some fund so we can try those and we can tell people which variety works for which location. And that's the purpose of it. So we do lots of variety evaluation. Josh, for example, Jensen, Sharon, Kylie, Emily, James, uh, Jennifer. We have Rosemary. We have so many people statewide do lots of variety evaluation because so we can make recommendations to farmers based on the best performing. And that goes for a long list of crops. And I'm going to give you some examples. Basil, for example, that's Josh Kuliana area of one of the crops that he likes to work on, and he's been doing a great job. Looking at varieties because the susceptibility to diseases in Hawaii is a bit high, so he's been looking into varieties, for example, for downy mildew. And also there is another one if you don't have a land, we've been soilless ways to grow these as well. You don't have land, fine. We can still look into other methods to grow crops so we can at least continue growing crops instead of just relying on land because we are limited in land no matter what. So we look for other ways as well. Josh, for example, shared with me this slide earlier today, showing the varieties that he tested, because downy mildew is a big issue, and looking into different varieties that could do better, has some resistance or tolerance to the downy mildew, and like for example Prospera versus the uh, Genovese variety. So looking into these varieties will help. Now we have at least an option. An additional one is also cost of production. In Hawaii is very high because we import everything. So yes, sometimes there is a preference for varieties in the market for certain varieties, but then they are susceptible to so much diseases. You're gonna have to spray nonstop in order to keep them healthy, but that will add up on the cost of production. So looking for varieties with resistance or some tolerance, that will help a lot by cutting down on the cost of production as well. Jensen, for example, did evaluation of varieties of cauliflower. And I believe he published also the data. Josh also published the data, I believe. And if you go on Hanai, you will find link to those results as well. Sweet potato. Now, see in the caption what I said: risk of virus distribution. Sweet potato in Hawaii, right? It's actually everywhere. We use the slips, right? But then we transfer the slips a lot between island to island or location to location. There is a recent study that showed that transferring those slips from location to location has been causing for the different viruses to spread out. In fact, the survey that they took different samples of sweet potato from statewide, found that almost everywhere the same viruses are everywhere in the state almost. That's because one major issue is that we transfer slips uh, between locations. So for the biosecurity reasons, to reduce that spread of diseases, it's very important, for example, to reach out to, for example, Josh, myself, Rosemary. If we can have, we are part of the what's called NCPN, the National Clean Plant Network. We've been trying actually to increase it. It's just sometimes the availability of funds is not always available to do much. But definitely we've been trying to get more tissue culture uh, uh, cleaned materials. So, for example, they select Okinawan, for example, sweet potato. They will clean it from any viruses, and then they will produce tissue culture out of it. Now, nothing in life is, how should I say, perfect, right? This is part of life. Um, Over time, you have to keep doing selection. Otherwise, you end up with losing some characteristics. We found that little bit with the Okinawan sweet potato, that the inside purple are not completely purple. That's because tissue culture over tissue culture, giving you a little bit what's called off type. It still is healthy. It has antioxidants. It's just showing a little bit what's called off-type characteristics. So definitely selection will be very important, and hopefully we will be able to secure fund too, so we can maybe get some of those tissue culture. Unfortunately, the issue with the sweet potato, like for example with banana, comparing with tissue with the sweet potato. Banana, because you grow it and then you can protect it from the bunchy top, and you keep taking cakeys and expand. When it comes to the sweet potato, within 3-4 months, there is a potential already risk of reinfection. So those are not resistant; they are just clean of the virus. They clean them from the virus, then they produce tissue culture out of them. It doesn't mean they have resistance, so they will get infected. So that means you have to always get tissue culture again and again. You may maybe expand it a little bit, for example, 2 growing seasons or so on, or you get those tissue culture, put them in a pot in a greenhouse, and you keep them as a only as a slip source. So you always take slips from them. You keep them protected. You spray them. You make sure no insect that bring in the virus into them. You sanitize that greenhouse. You keep those healthy growing, and then you take slips from them and plant them in the field. But don't collect slips again. You go back again into the pots and get slips again and go again into the field. In fact, that's right now a widespread practice on the mainland. They produce sweet potato like acres and acres. What they do, they get the tissue culture in winter. They put them in controlled greenhouses. The plants will start growing, and when spring comes, they will take the slips and go into the field. And then after they harvest the sweet potato, they plow everything. They feed them to cows, or they plow everything, and then they go again and they get tissue culture, and they do the cycle all over again. This way, they are eliminating that transfer of viruses from place to place and from season to season. Garlic. Jensen been doing garlic in Hawaii here. Yes, there are some kind of issues right now, especially with cooling and stuff. But there is so many multiple different types of garlic, including the green ones, where you can harvest the technically the flower, the tip of the stem with some flower in it. Can be used as a green garlic. Yes, it doesn't have the sharp taste of garlic, but it has a little bit of it. But it also can be used. This is a variety right now for they call it green garlic. But there's multiple ones he's been working on and trying to get uh, the best varieties that they are doing well here in Hawaii tested more and more. Cilantro. Josh, Jensen, and myself are part of we were part of a project on celery and cilantro. So we evaluated different varieties, and we've been actually we made recommendations based on that. Data also published and all of that. So this type of things, like, you can reach out to us. Sometimes we even have seeds. We can maybe give you some seeds at least to start instead of buying and trying. So we tell you, for example, how the varieties are doing, and if we have extra seeds, we are always willing to help and give some seeds as well. Um, melon and pumpkin, and also the control of the melon flies or fruit flies in general. Those are also, we did actually work. It was James Keish on Kauai. He was the lead on a project, specialty crop from the state. We evaluated different varieties of melons. Some varieties did beautifully great. Yes, we had to do the traps for the melon flies, but we were able to harvest beautiful, nicely sweet melons and pumpkins from the trials. Ted, for example, Ted Radovich, him and Mikey Kantar, he's a plant breeder. They've been doing some work on pumpkins, varieties that they have better characteristics under Hawaii. They don't look as beautiful from outside, but they are very good inside, and they have been selecting for large meat portion and smaller seeds portion. That's what they've been looking for and selecting out of these breeding. Hopefully, at some point, we will have enough seeds from good varieties so we can distribute. Sweet corn, as I mentioned earlier. Now, the sweet corn, we did testing for mainland varieties, and we are not abandoning the Hawaiian varieties. That's Dr. James Brubaker and others spent decades working on. Now, unfortunately, at some point, the availability of seeds from the Hawaiian varieties are not there. And instead of just not producing anything, we start testing some varieties from the mainland, at least so the production in Hawaii will continue while we are working on increasing seeds and also evaluating some new hybrids from Dr. James Brubaker selection that he developed over time. We are trying to see how they do here in Hawaii and also increasing seeds. So hopefully at some point we will have extra seeds from those Hawaiian varieties based on the evaluation and selection criteria, and then we can distribute those. But also in the meantime, we are looking into mainland varieties, so at least we have some options for the farmers to continue producing sweet corn in Hawaii. Beans, we've been working a lot. Josh did the soybean varieties. I've been working on beans, both fresh and dry, for a while now, and we have very good results on those ones. Best performing ones, and also in both the green and the fresh cuts stuff in the soybean, in cowpea, and also in the dry beans like kind of kidney beans and so on. We have lots of data that we can share with everybody. We've been looking into for example, in the edamame, we've been looking into the total yield, the size of the pod, and the suitability under Hawaii's condition. Also, we've been looking into crops and varieties for value-added products. Now, it's not a secret that labeling any products in Hawaii grown and made in Hawaii that gives it that extra value. So we've been looking for crops based on the need of the local market in value-added products. For example, the tempeh. It's made from any beans, but definitely Azuki is the best one. So we've been testing some Azuki varieties to see which one will do well in Hawaii. So that tempeh can be labeled grown and made in Hawaii. And so on and so forth. There's so much other value-added products. For example, crops suitable for kimchi, for example, right? The pak choi or the other crops that they are suitable. Jensen and Josh been working on some here and there also as well to make sure that the market is provided with something that can be used locally to produce value-added products as well. Again, I go back to no soil. Fine. We can do other stuff with soilless. We did lots of work on, for example, ginger. Soilless ginger is beautiful. Can go for both ways. You can use the uh, raised beds, pots ginger to produce seeds because ginger pieces are considered seeds because that's what you regrow with. So if you grow ginger for seeds, it's gonna give you premium in the money because when you buy ginger for seeds, you're gonna pay way more than the ginger that we just eat because the one for seeds has been tested, make sure it doesn't have the, for example, the bacterial wilt cause, for example. So, and also the same thing with the pots. You can grow ginger for consumption using these pots too. From one pot, which was, I believe, was 10-gallon capacity, I harvested 11 pounds of ginger. Beautiful ginger, actually, from 10-gallon pots. Definitely, you have to use good media. You have to fertilize them well. And we did lots of workshops on the type of media and type of fertilizers. And hopefully soon in the future, I will go back again and visit those topics and do more workshops about them as well to make sure people are aware of what kind of stuff that we are doing. Now it comes to here, I'm going to mention a little bit things that's around that, which is, for example, the fertilizer type. Uh, organic and synthetic fertilizer, they act differently. So if you are using organic amendments, you have to understand that the nutrients, for example, usually in organic amendments are lower concentration than the synthetic ones. That means you have to add more of the organic to meet the same amount of nutrient needed for the crops. I give you a very good example. See, urea has 46% nitrogen, while blood meal has only 12. So 1 pound of urea, you need 4 pounds of the blood meal to reach the same amount of nitrogen. Additionally, the nutrients from organic amendments don't release as quickly as the synthetic fertilizers. Now, I'm not telling you don't use organic. I'm telling you understand what it is in order to make sure you are giving the crop the needed. Because we are limited in land and everything is costly in Hawaii, if we are producing something, let's get the optimum of it by understanding what kind of fertilizer I'm using, how do I deal with it, how much I need to add so I can get the optimum growth and yield, definitely. Compostee. Compostee is a very good thing that you are growing the same thing. You are growing the pak choi or the lettuce or whatever. Compostee can just be an additive one that can improve the crop yield. Now, keep in mind, compostee made because of the Food Safety Modernization Act. Right now, compostee that made from raw vermicompost is considered high risk of food contamination. So that worm casting has to be composted first, and then you can make compostee out of it. But that's just an example here showing you that some additives, you're growing the same thing, but just some additives could help you. So compostee, for example, same pak choi, they did much better under compostee versus no compostee. Seaweed extracts. Seaweed extracts also can help us. Yes, you are growing the same crop, but when you add seaweed extracts, some of them they help the plants to have bigger roots. Some of them they trigger the plants to have better flowering. With that, see the tomatoes. And the different seaweed extract, same variety of tomatoes, gave me different amount. That's the same harvest, by the way. The the lower trays, they are the same plot, same size, just different seaweed extracts and control, no seaweed extracts. And the amount of tomato I got from the same plot varied. So that's an addition to, yes, selecting crops and varieties. There are some stuff that can help us as well. For example, if you are growing legumes, inoculate the seeds with the rhizobium bacteria, because rhizobium bacteria, it's a free nitrogen fixation. The air we breathe has 76% of it nitrogen. So this rhizobium bacteria makes nodules on the roots and fixes atmospheric nitrogen for free. That helps the plant to grow better, and it's a free nitrogen. I don't need to add it myself. I add little bit just to encourage the plants to grow well, and then the rest I inoculate to make sure the nitrogen fixation is working. Win-win. Cover cropping. Cover cropping is good. I usually myself, I like to do cover cropping of dual use crops. Like for example, cowpea. Cowpea I can still harvest from it. It fixes the atmospheric nitrogen, stays green for longer time, and then I can mow it and till it whenever I want. And I still can harvest some pods out of it. Also, it's a beautiful, it usually builds nice big amount of biomass that helps me to suppress weeds. Win-win. So that's usually how I go. But there are so many different cover crops that can be helpful also for us to improve the crop production that comes for the crop that comes after. We've been working on producing biochar from invasive species. We are trying to reclaim that land from the invasive species, converting those invasive species into something good, taking the pods and burning them so they are not going to spread more invasive species for us, taking the biochar and use it to the soil to improve the crop yield as well. Without, again, don't stress out. Reach out to your extension agent. Ask them about the crops that you would like to grow. If there is a recommendation for varieties, and keep growing. And thank you. And if you have any questions.